Hello, I hope you're well. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to today's video where I am ranking the 7 books in one of my favorite contemporary romance series, The Bergman Brothers by Liese. And this series has gotten me through my reading slump. These were the books that I would turn to time and time again because I knew they were going to be enjoyable. I knew I was going to want to finish them, and I knew I was going to enjoy the ride along the way. So I really almost exclusively read these books in the last year, and I want to rank them. So, for anyone who doesn't know about the Bergman Brothers series, it is a series of standalone contemporary romances that is centered around this very large Swedish American family. It is 5 brothers and 2 sisters, and each of the books is about one of the Bergman siblings finding love, and romantic things happen. But these books are spicy, they are sweet, they have amazing banter and chemistry, and they're just lovely. But what I also really enjoy about them is that you do have this big family dynamic. So although the books are standalone, so you don't technically need to read them in order, you do get the siblings popping up in each other's stories, meddling a little bit. You get, the parents, you get vacations, you just get some of that warm and fuzzy feeling that is completely not romantic and is just familial. And then on top of that, you do have some sports lean with some of these books. I'd say soccer figures pretty prominently in a number of them, as well as hockey. But as someone who is not a sports fan and only loosely follows hockey these days, you don't need to be a sports fanatic to enjoy these. It just adds a little bit of a flavor to some of the characters and their aspirations. But I think what really sets this series apart is that the romantic characters, the male leads and the female leads, are often battling either chronic mental or physical illnesses that impact how they're able to enter a relationship and sometimes communicate, and just how they see themselves and how the world sees them. And that plays a large part in these stories and what I really, really enjoyed about them. So I will say that this ranking is completely subjective, obviously, and I enjoyed all of these books. I think most of them were 4 to 5 stars for me, but there were definitely books that I got along with a little bit better than others. So we're going to talk through these books and give them my ranking. Coming in at number 7 as my least favorite book is Everything for You. This is the story of Oliver and Gavin, and this is one of the stories that leans more heavily into the sports world. Both Oliver and Gavin are on a national sports team. Gavin is kind of the David Beckham-esque character. He's had a lengthy career. He's the captain. He's very famous. Oliver, as a teenager, idolized this man and aspired to be him on the soccer field? Soccer pitch? Whatever you call it. But now they're on the same team together. Gavin is kind of at the end of his career. He's also experiencing a lot of chronic pain as a result of what he's put his body through for his career. And you have Oliver, who deals with anxiety. Now, this is a story that is both an enemies to lover and a forced proximity trope focused book. So basically their coach decides you two are going to be co-captains of the team this year. And that doesn't go over that well. There's a lot of bad behavior, practical jokes, and just things getting out of hand to the point that the coach decides, I'm giving you an ultimatum, get along, figure this out, or neither of you can be captains anymore, which is obviously a big deal. This is a career highlight for them. So they have to learn to make nice. And it's a romance, so being in forced, close proximity and having that banter that I spoke about, sparks fly, essentially. And I mean, from the beginning that Oliver has had a crush on Gavin, And honestly, you know that Gavin also finds Oliver really, really attractive. As I mentioned, it is enemies to lover. It does have forced proximity. There is an age gap. And I would also say there is that shared bed trope that does come into play in the book itself. The reason that I would say this book is my least favorite is because I did feel as though this was a book that did not feel authentic, or as authentic as it could, to being LGBTQ plus. I do think that it read to me as a straight woman writing a gay romance, and putting all of the idealism around what that relationship would be into these characters, which made them feel not quite as genuine as some of the other characters in the series. There were moments when the conversations between these two grown men just felt really, really cheesy and saccharine, to the point that I questioned believability there. There were also times when the characters could be really, really immature that I didn't particularly enjoy. And there was something just missing there that I feel like wasn't an issue with the other books. But yeah, I just felt like that came into play with this story. And so it wasn't my favorite, unfortunately. Coming in at number 6 is With You Forever, the story of Rooney and Axel. So Axel Bergman is a character who is autistic, and he's a painter, very artistic, soulful, a little bit awkward at times, and he has really taken on a lot of the burden of taking care of the Bergman's A-frame, which is this location that appears over and over again in the books. It is where these characters all grew up, and as the family expanded, the A-frame expanded, and now that all of the children are grown, this is somewhere that they gather together, but they all take responsibility for some of the upkeep. Well, the A-frame, unfortunately, has become a bit of a money pit, and while Axel is usually able to make up the money that he needs for the repairs through selling his paintings, he's having a bit of a creative block thanks to a kiss with Rooney that, sets off a whole bunch of feelings for him that he is having a difficult time processing. Well, he's at the A-frame when Rooney appears, and he's dealing with seeing a very hefty bill. He does, however, have access to some funds if only he marries. And so, to thank the Bergmans for all they've done as far as letting her stay at the A-frame to recover, Rooney agrees, and they enter this marriage of convenience where you have this somewhat stoic, introverted Axel and Miss Sunshine over there recovering. And I mean, it is a sweet story, don't get me wrong. It truly is. For me, I don't think marriage of convenience as a trope works. It feels really, really contrived, especially in a modern setting. And I get it, but also I'm kind of like, in the 21st century, are we really tying inheritance to people's marital status? That gives me a little bit of the ick. So while the characters themselves are truly lovely, and I do really appreciate the fact that you have a character with IBD and you have another one of Chloe Lisa's characters with autism, and what I do like is that the characters with autism show that spectrum in the books. They don't have the same triggers, and so that's also great. The marriage of convenience, though, was just not for me, despite how steamy and lovely the characters were. Also, I feel like this was the book where you had less involvement of all of the other Bergmans in the story, and I love that dynamic. So for me, this was just a little bit of a miss. Coming in at number 5 is Ever After Always. Now, this is a marriage in crisis, second chance trope, close forced proximity situation that centers around Freya, one of the Bergman sisters for a change, and her husband Aiden. And Freya is experiencing infertility. Her husband Aiden has anxiety. And basically, things have been a little bit on the rocks because of their infertility journey. And because of Aiden's own background, he's struggling a bit. He is working on this startup and putting all of his time and energy into this business idea of his, to the detriment of his relationship with his wife. But as he sees it, he's kind of future-proofing their finances, which is something that's very important to him, because unlike the Bergmans, who had, a very fortunate childhood, that is not the case for him. So he thinks he's doing what a husband needs to do, which is provide. His wife is like, you need to see me, be with me. And a lot of conflict ensues. Their marriage really does seem like it's going to end in divorce when they are forced to go on an island getaway with the entire Bergman clan, because Dr. Bergman and their mother Ellen's anniversary is coming up. They are the perfect couple. And so all of the kids decide, we're going to do a big family vacation. Unbeknownst to them, there is this kind of rift forming between Freya and Aiden, and so they're forced to be celebrating this perfect marriage while their marriage seems to be falling apart. This was a situation where I actually feel like the interference of the Bergmans was a little bit too heavy-handed here, but it is sweet. It's just, again, I think any of those really what feel like contrived situations in romance books don't do it for me. So the two of them being forced to go on this vacation and not wanting to tell anyone what's going on because they don't want to put a damper on the celebrations just felt a little bit, I don't know if I believe this. Like, is everyone really that clueless about what's going on in your marriage? So yeah, it was just, I don't know. It also was the one book where you're not seeing the relationship necessarily from the beginning. They're already married at this point. And so while you do get a glimpse of, what drew these characters to each other at the beginning of the book, you get some of these moments where you do see the past. Like, the book is set at a time when they're already married, they already have this established relationship, and I do kind of like seeing the sparks. Like, I do like that initial flush of love and romance and just attraction and all of that. So yeah, this just wasn't the one. Wasn't the one for me. Coming in at number 4 is Only When It's Us, which is actually the first book in the Bergman Brothers series and was the first book that I read. And when I did read it, it was 5 stars and I enjoyed it. But I did not know the rest of the world that I was about to enter into. And so while this is still a 5-star read for me, it's just perhaps not as memorable as some of the other 5-star books in this series. So this is about Willa and Ryder. Ryder is the Bergman of this particular book, and they are students at UCLA. This is another one of the books in the series that does talk and deal with soccer in particular. Ryder was a collegiate soccer player, and he ends up going deaf as a result of meningitis. And so this is something that he is coping with, as far as some of the limitations of communicating in the book. And also, his dreams are now dashed. He's not able to continue to play soccer. You have Willa, who is this up and coming star athlete, Division I soccer player, and she's struggling to keep up with academics with her grueling soccer schedule. So her professor in one of her classes tells her to get notes from another classmate, enter writer. And this is an enemies to lovers situation. She misinterprets some of Ryder's like reservedness as him being rude, and again a lot of miscommunications ensue because of that. And the two of them, just a lot of banter, a lot of practical jokes. They're forced to work on a project together, and that forced proximity is how sparks kind of continue to fly throughout the book. It's lovely because I've never seen deaf representation in a book. And I do give Chloe Liese a lot of credit because apparently there was an earlier version of the book that was then revised so that the representation was more accurate. And I give her a lot of props for that, and there is an author's note about it, and I read the updated version. So I give a lot of credit where credit is due there. But I would say the college setting isn't usually my vibe, and although the relationship is sweet, and this was my first Chloe Liese book, so it has a very special place in my heart, like I said, it just did not feel quite as memorable as some of the books that I'm talking about in the next few spots in my ranking. Coming in at number 3 is If Only You, the story of the littlest Bergman, Ziggy, and Sebastian Gautier. And I will just say that one of the lines in the book is, Sebastian Gautier, give me back my panties. That is the beginning of the book. But basically, this is the story of, as I said, the youngest Bergman and one of the girls in the family, Ziggy, who, in I want to say book 1 or book 2, is diagnosed as being autistic. And she's a character that recurs throughout the series, and you do see her develop kind of from this recently diagnosed teenager trying to come to grips with her diagnosis, being very kind of introverted as a result of it, learning how to interact with people and the world. And you also see her family trying to navigate how to support and protect her at the same time. Well, she's full grown in this book, and she's the youngest player on the national soccer team, and she is dealing with kind of a perception issue, I guess you could say, in that she feels like she is being viewed as the good girl, the little girl with autism that needs protection and isn't being treated, like an adult, and not being taken seriously enough, in her humble opinion. Enter Sebastian Gautier, who is a hockey player on her brother's team, the LA Kings, and he has a perception and PR issue, whereas he is the bad boy, tattoo covered, gets in fights, gruff, sexy LA Kings hockey player. He is definitely my type. And he is basically at a point in his career where he's about to lose all of his sponsorships and potentially his position on the LA Kings if he doesn't clean up his act. And so these two realize that if they enter a fake friendship, as it were, that they could both benefit, because she could potentially be taken more seriously if she's seen with someone like Sebastian, and he could also be taken more seriously if he's seen with someone like Ziggy, who basically the world, rightfully so, adores. And so this is a little bit of an age gap, definitely that good girl, bad boy sort of trope, fake friendship, fake dating situation, and it's just sweet. Like, I love Ziggy. She's just precious and really too pure for this world. So I understand her family's impulse to protect her. And seeing her character grow and develop over the series, but then also in this book in particular, is just really, really heartwarming. But to also see just the care and deliberation she takes with Sebastian, because he's diagnosed with celiac disease, and so she like goes out of her way to, you know, introduce him to foods and buying groceries and things that his stomach will be able to eat without getting upset, essentially. And there's a lot of just like domestic sort of cuteness with the two of them, just like sitting on the couch, eating food, all that sort of thing. There's also a lot of very, very sweet banter between the characters. And then, yeah, like the steamy scenes are steamy. I feel like my one complaint with the book is I feel like they took a while to get there. There was maybe not enough of it for my romance loving self in this case. So I really enjoyed it. Sebastian is kind of right up my alley as far as types with books. So yeah, this is coming in at number 3. I think again, number 3, just because the faked friendship, the contrivance there doesn't typically sit well with me. Coming in at number 2, and I do feel like this exposes me for my type. Always Only You, which is the story of Ren Bergman and Frankie. And Red is a player on the LA Kings. He's Sebastian Gautier's teammate from the previous book. He is even more my type than Sebastian. Like, Sebastian's my type because hockey. And, you know, the tattoos do something. They do. But Ren is like the perfect embodiment of my man. He is a hockey player. He is the sunshine in this book. He rarely swears. He's great with kids. He loves Shakespeare and runs like a Shakespeare club. And he drives a minivan. And like, oh, my heart, it melts. But this is the story of him and Frankie, who is the social media manager for the LA Kings. So Frankie is a character that experiences both the difficulties associated with rheumatoid arthritis. She carries a cane around, but she's also been recently diagnosed with autism, and she's a character that kind of has created a wall between her and people in general. She's very blunt. She has been hurt before, so she's kind of protecting herself, but she's also trying to come to grips with this diagnosis and how it means she interacts with people. And it's a little bit of a struggle for her, truth be told, and she doesn't want people to see her as less than. That is her concern. She doesn't want people to feel like she can't do things or that she's in somehow truly restricted from doing things. She wants people to just see her for who she is. And you have this lovable, sweet bear of a man, Ren, who has a friendship with her. And, you know, the more time they spend with each other is the more this banter and this chemistry comes out. They are co-workers, so Ren has like a strict, like, we can't, like, we're co-workers, we can't do this is forbidden. And, you know, Frankie's avoiding relationships because she's been hurt. So it is a slow burn, like many of the books in the series. I think, honestly, all of the books in the series, to be quite honest. And they're just adorable together. And I think, you know, having a character like Ren who is that sort of macho athlete in the hockey world, also be kind of this nerd and just so sweet and kind of tear down that toxic masculine vibe and stigma association that you often have with athletes is also really, really wonderful. Um, but they're just, it's just, it just kiss, all the kisses. I like it's beautiful. It is a great story. It is the second book in the series. Um, and I do honestly feel like there was quite a bit of growth in her writing from book 1 to book 2. So that is also why this book is number 2. And coming in at number 1 is Only and Forever, Viggo Bergman and Tallulah's story. And this is the 7th and final book in the series, and it was my favorite. Viggo is the ultimate prankster, meddler, hopeless romantic, adorable cupcake. He is all up in his siblings' love lives because he's a hopeless romantic himself. He believes in finding the one, and he has struggled to find the one. He's also a, you know, huge romance reader, is opening a romance-focused bookstore. He rescues a bunch of animals. He coaches kid soccer. He basically is a cupcake, a literal cupcake of a man. But he takes on a lot, and he suffers from ADHD and doesn't really know how to ask for help. Enter Lula, who is a crime thriller writer, and she's dealing with some serious writer's block, and has been told that the romantic plot in her latest book is just lacking something. And she kind of stays clear of romance and has a lot of toxic family situations going on that contribute to that. And she is a character that suffers with diabetes, and so that's something that comes into play. But these characters become roommates effectively because they understand that they could both offer each other some sort of service, not in a sexual way, just he's a big reader of romance, so he can help her to flesh out that romance plot and make it believable and bring that book to the next level. And he, who is a new owner of a romance bookstore, can, you know, have extra help in the bookstore without having to actually pay someone because she's saying, no, I have money enough. You're doing something really helpful to me, so I will help you out. And because they're together in close proximity, you know, sparks fly. But they are, I think it's the growth of these characters that I truly enjoy. It's a book that really is about showing your vulnerability and opening up to other characters. It's, especially in Lula's case, like she's the sort of individual that will shut down and run off when faced with problems. And so to see her actually communicate and start talking and opening up to Viggo is great. Also seeing Viggo finally find his romance is it's what you needed. And there are some lovely, lovely scenes and chemistry between them. And it's just, as much as the roommate situation is contrived and don't love that as a trope, I do think that the characters in this book made up for it in spades, or whatever that expression is. It was just great. Honestly, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it made me sad to know that this Bergman world was coming to an end, finishing that book. So there is a little bit of like a nostalgia there as well. Anyway, that would be my ranking of the Bergman Brothers series from my least favorite to my favorite. So hopefully that is valuable information to some of you out there. But if you do like this ranking type of video, do let me know, because there are other authors, other series that I could certainly do this for. But yeah, I will truly miss the Bergman Brothers series. I will start a petition, I think, to get Dr. Bergman and Ellen's story, because the Bergman parents deserve their moment in the spotlight. So Chloe, Liese, if you happen to be watching this, which I doubt, give us the final Bergman book we all need, please. But anyway, I think that's it for now. I'm gonna go because I think a little chaos demon wants to go for a walk. But thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe. I will see you next time.